wait, don't tell me. How many of y'all knew that?
No, that's right.
As well as NPR's Office of Civic Engagement. She serves as creative consultant for Black Public Media's 360 Incubator, a mentorship program for African American media makers. Rattley also founded, launched, and produced the Africa Learning Channel, a Pan-African news and information service streaming via WorldSpace satellite to over 100 million listeners in 51 African countries.
That's
Without further ado, I would like to my sister Sandy to join me up here and tell us about her film. She also happens to be the godmother of our child.
Really, all I really do value is show up whenever Haile and Shariq call. Thank you everyone for being here. Shariq, thank you for inviting this screening here to show this film. The title of the film is Searching for Augusta Savage, because this sister is a groundbreaker. In the 1920s and 1930s, she was a person who was championing Black Lives Mattering before there was such a slogan, in terms of centering Black lives and Black bodies and art exclusively. She did so many great things. So the question for me was, how could someone who was so accomplished have been erased? How could we not know her? So the idea of a search was searching for answers as to why someone who was so accomplished and so invested in our lives and our culture, how could we not know her? So I invite you to watch this short and really welcome your feedback and your questions and reflections afterwards. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming.
Augusta Savage was the only African American commissioned to create an exhibit for the 1939 World's Fair in Flushing, New York.
I have taken for my theme the National Negro Anthem. It is a poem written by the late James Weldon Johnson and set to the music by his brother, Rosamond Johnson. The title is Lift Every Voice and Sing.
Lift every voice and sing.
Savage worked for over a year creating a 16-foot sculpture that paid homage to African American culture and the promise of Black youth. What were the reactions to the sculpture?
It was the most popular piece of art in the 1939 World's Fair. She was able to make souvenirs to sell.
After this highly publicized display at the World, it is literally just dismantled and discarded. That's emblematic of the erasure of the history of African American artists, African American culture. We were there, she was there, but all that we're left with today is a small scale cast of the original work of art.
Not only was Lift Every Voice and Sing destroyed, but some say 70 of the approximately 160 works of art by Augusta Savage are lost or missing today. I'm Jeffrey Hayes. I am the curator of the Augusta Savage Renaissance Woman exhibition, and I'm on a search to understand why one of America's greatest sculptors seems to have been erased.
I'm in Harlem, y'all.
The first stop on my search for answers is the Schomburg Center, the research mecca of Black culture.
I manage a collection of over 15,000 items that document the Black diaspora. And of course, we have the largest collection of Augusta Savage work in a public institution. We have about 22 pieces. Here we have the reclining nude. This one is bronze. And this is the pugilist. She was able to really capture the strength. You can see his musculature and his facial features. And then we have Laughing Boy. She did a lot of kids.
And what's the material?
It's plaster. This, of course, is her bust of James Weldon Johnson, a real Renaissance man, a lawyer, songwriter, poet, Secretary General of the NAACP, and a good friend of hers. And this is the original gammon that will set her off. That will set her off.
We only have 2 boxes of her papers. She didn't leave much behind for us.
I was born on the 29th of February in the dark of the moon. I was a leap year baby, and it seems to me that I've been leaping ever since.
Born in 1892 in Green Cove Springs, Florida, the 7th of 14 children, Savage resisted her parents' early disapproval of her art making.
Ever since I was a tiny little tot, I wanted to model things out of any material I could. Dough, soap, mud, or clay. I made ducks by the dozen from the red clay and would stick them all around the yard.
Augusta got recognition at the county fair in Florida, and the commissioner of the fair said, Augusta, you should go to New York so that you could explore your talents, so you could be an artist. So she took him up on it, and she got accepted to Cooper Union.
I had just arrived in New York with exactly $4.50, a determination to become an artist, and a successful one, in 6 months.
She was a single mom. She left her daughter Irene with the family so she could pursue her education here and finish her degree in 3 years instead of 4. She did work as a laundress, and things were very hard for her. She wasn't making a lot of money.
After getting established, Savage, who was widowed twice and once divorced, brought her daughter and 7 other family members up from Florida to live in her small apartment in Harlem. Her home also became a gathering place for leading artists and intellectuals of the 1920s and 30s, the New Negro movement, later known as the Harlem Renaissance.
Zora Neale Hurston was there, Richard Wright was there, County Cullen was one of her best friends.
The Harlem Renaissance was central to the portrayal of every aspect of modern Black life that was taking shape in the new Black cities that were the result of the Great Migration. We have the founding of the NAACP, of the Urban League, as well as literature, music. This was the period when jazz really began to flourish.
In 1923, Savage got a scholarship to attend a prestigious art school in France.
Then suddenly, when I was all prepared and about ready to sail, I got a letter from the committee saying they were awfully sorry I did not let them know I was colored, as they had not made arrangements for colored students. Can you imagine the headache and heartache resulting? However, it only served to fire me with more determination than ever to succeed.
She started a letter writing campaign to let everyone know what had happened to her.
I hear so many complaints to the effect that Negroes do not take advantage of the educational opportunities offered them. Well, one of the reasons is that as soon as one of us gets his head above the crowd, there are millions of feet ready to crush it back again. How am I to compete with other American artists if I'm not to be given the same opportunity?
You know, she still never gave up the dream of Paris, and then she finally got it in 1929 when she did Gammon. And that took her to Europe to study. So as a Black woman, she just powered through that. She never let it stop her. It just made her stronger. She was a way maker. She was an artist advocate, an artist educator, and an activist.
I'm at the location of the Savage Studio of Arts and Crafts, a space that she founded in 1932 in this building. Here, Savage hosted free art classes that included painting and sculpture and printmaking.
We really have a lot of native talent in Harlem. I hope that I can make the school a permanent one, as there is a crying need for it. We've had to turn down 60 persons in the last 6 weeks for lack of space.
Augusta put a little bit of steel in my backbone. I don't think that I would have continued against all the odds it is to be a woman artist, to keep right on working. It was because she was my mentor, because she was my friend, and because she had done the same thing.
She started the Harlem Artists Guild to hire Black artists onto projects.
Augusta Savage was one of the leading lights in the Harlem community. This was one of the most important periods in my life. When I came in contact with her, she thought it was time for me to start being paid for what I was doing. I don't know how to make a living delivering newspapers or working in laundry, but when I turned 21 in 1938, Augusta literally took me downtown and had me sign up on the Federal Art Project, was paid a tremendous salary at that time of $23.86 a week.
Savage also secured government funding during the Great Depression to expand her school to provide training to 2,500 youth and adults. I'm at the location where the Harlem Community Art Center was established in 1937 by Augusta Savage. There were a number of African American art masters who not only taught, but were also students at the center. The way that she was navigating her career, I began to really think about her as a race woman, putting the Black body and the Black experience at the center, creating a deeper understanding of race in daily life.
Augusta Savage was very much in tune with everyday people, and she made works of everyday people.
Which work speaks to you the most?
Well, I have to say Gammon. That was my first encounter with her work. A sweet little boy with his cap on. He was contemporary and definitely Black. For me, I could tell when an artist loves me by what they create. When they're speaking to me, and they recognize Blackness in a beautiful way. And, you know, for 1929, for her to leave that for us. So I love that work.
It's a very academically classical rendering of a young boy's face. And compare that to the way young Black boys were depicted in the popular culture. That portrait was absolutely modern. It was radically modern.
Although it's no longer here, this is where Augusta Savage opened the first Black art gallery in the country, the Salon of Contemporary Negro Arts.
I've long felt that Negro artists have reached the point where they should have a gallery of their own. We've made every effort to make this one of the finest galleries in the country, a mecca for all art lovers.
The opening was a grand affair attended by over 500 art lovers. But in the midst of the Great Depression, the artwork didn't sell. The gallery closed within 3 months, and funding for the Harlem Community Art Center ran out too.
She said, the community is not ready for me. And when she told me this story, she literally cried. She was so broken.
In looking for work by Augusta Savage, I was struck by how few places had the work. We don't have her in our collection. Even the historically Black colleges and universities don't all have works by Augusta Savage. The museum market, the art market, the galleries, the critical attention was given to male artists. Even today, 87% of works of art in museum collections are by men. Augusta Savage was at the forefront of the forgotten woman artist. But she didn't have the means to lift every voice and sing back from blushing into a storeroom in Harlem or a museum and have it preserved. This is probably the most tragic example of Black woman artists not having resources to preserve their work.
After the losses and disappointments she experienced, Savage took refuge in upstate New York, 100 miles north of Harlem, where some say she just disappeared.
This is really a pilgrimage. Here we go.
The Augusta Savage house and studio has been listed in the National Register of Historic Places by the United States Department of the Interior.
It's so good to see you.
Anthony, this is so exciting.
Yeah, welcome to Augusta Savage's home.
So tell us about how Augusta ended up in Socrates.
She had friends in Hudson Valley, and that may have been one of the reasons that she came to Saugerties specifically. It was also a lovely town near a river.
What's your connection to Augusta?
I'm related to the owners of this house. The earlier connection is to my grandfather, who was a scientist, and he met Augusta Savage in the late 40s. She would occasionally come over to my grandparents' home on the river and give these poetry readings. So this is her typewriter, this Remington. Yeah, that's where she did her writing, her stories, her poetry.
I've spent hours in deep communion with the hummingbirds and bees. I've exchanged love's deepest secrets with the softly sighing trees. I've discussed my pains and pleasures. I've revealed my dearest treasures. And upon life's harsh alarms, I've turned my back.
Very few people know about her as a poet or a writer. It's wonderful to hear that perspective about Augusta.
My grandfather would say, she's the smartest person you'll ever meet. He would talk about composers, and he would talk about scientists, and he'd talk about Augusta Savage. It was usually something like Beethoven, Erwin Schrödinger, who came up with quantum physics, and Augusta Savage. And so she was in that orbit of great human beings, great minds. I want to show you a few other things.
Yes, please.
Yes. This is the plastiline, and it was a type of clay. This is the original one that she would have used to do her sculpting. So for instance, like this is the Marian Anderson sculpture. She made that while she was here in Saugerties. There's a general sense that she was forgotten, but from what we understand, she had people coming here all the time.
She still had a social life.
She still had
Connected to New York. So tell me, what are the plans for this space?
In the next few years, we maybe have some sort of residency program for aspiring artists and writers.
So it would be helping to fulfill a dream that she put out into the world to found a colony of young artists in the countryside.
I wanted to ask you what your impressions were coming here and seeing what you saw today.
It will probably take me a while to fully digest that I'm sitting in this moment in the same kitchen as someone that I had lovingly called my art godmother. I think that there have definitely been attempts to erase her and downplay her importance.
Yeah.
I'm just really happy that she was most likely at peace here in a way that she may not have found in the city. All the stops on this search have shown me that even if half of Savage's artistic masterpieces did not survive the test of time, her commitment to art education lives on, including at a newly opened community art center in her hometown.
We lose and have lost so much history, but we're picking up the pieces where we can, because she deserves that. Her hometown, her county, and her state has finally given her the recognition that she deserves.
That's good. Just keep going with it, okay? Being on this property is otherworldly because where she was born was actually behind us right here. And where she got her materials was in a clay pit that's down the street from here. And so this whole area was all Augusta Savage.
With the clay today, it doesn't have to be super realistic. It can be expressive. By offering these free art classes, just like Augusta did, we're ensuring that the next generation keep her vision alive. We actually use the pencil.
What type of things are running through your mind right now as the starting point? Animals. Excellent stuff.
making a sculpture of Braun and a baby.
Okay, does anyone in here feel like they want to be an artist as a career? Unanimous decision.
We need you.
Gussie, you truly are my hero. You truly, truly are. And that's why my passion is to make sure that your legacy lives on through every young person that walks through this door.
I have created nothing really beautiful, really lasting. But if I can inspire one of these youngsters to develop the talent I know they possess, then my monument will be their work.
While we wait for a comfortable chair, I think we're gonna bring the chairs right where you are. Sit back down.
I just want
Our friends. Oh,
Sorry. You know, it takes a minute to move thrones around.
Yes, I can. I'm holding this. She was the one who was sitting on the floor. I'm trying to. Okay. I was looking out. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Before you get started with our, introducing our wonderful guests, I just want us to have a wonderful applause for this wonderful.
Oh, yes.
Unveiling of the footage. I mean, I did feel like, I know it was very hard to do. I know that finding these footages were not easy, and I know that they are priceless. And I just felt like I was present with Augusta Savage, and she's still alive. So that reflects a lot about the kind of research that you did. So thank you so much, and I'm gonna clap again.
There is so much I could say about that, and I do want to say something about that. But first, you know, it is a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to have all of you here. It's a pleasure to be with Sharif and Haile. And it's also a pleasure to have the Grand Dame Black Arts, Black Literature here, because Dr. Eleanor Traylor does not come out the house very often. And when I called and asked her, I mean, I was really prepared that she was going to say, you know, I just can't do it. But when she immediately said yes, it's just such an honor and a privilege to have her here. So, I mean, there may be one or two people in the room who don't know who she is, but I'm just going to read a few things. She is professor of English, was professor of English Emerita, retired in 2014 as the former chair of the Department of English at Howard University.
You know.
She was a Sterling Brown professor, and she's also taught at many other schools as well. One of the things that people really revere her for is that she's a person who really maintains the tradition and the analysis of some of our greatest artists, including Toni Morrison, Zora Neale Hurston, Maya Angelou, James Baldwin. These are people that she writes about and lectures about very often. She's on the board of the Zora Neale Hurston Foundation, and she does many things. So we're just so pleased that the fabulous, always fabulous, Dr. Eleanor Traylor is here. And we're also really happy to have Amber Robles-Gordon with us today. She's a multidisciplinary artist, and please, if you don't know her or know her work, please go to her website, Amber Robles-Gordon, because when people talk about being multidisciplinary, but this woman works in every possible form. She was just talking about, before we started the film today, that she's working on a project about indigenous dance in Puerto Rico, Mamba, which is also very prominent throughout the Caribbean, and looking at that not just as a performance form, but also as an art form. And she's also an educator, and she is also a graduate of Howard University, and you know that also. Yeah. So thank you to both of you for sharing the mic, sharing the stage. I just want to just talk a little bit about, first off, what did the film emit for you in terms of what you felt? Sharikiana was saying what she felt about Augusta's spirit. I mean, what did her story say to you?
So one of the things, I don't think this is on, is it? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so one of the things I appreciated, just in relationship to being a Howard graduate, I graduated from the MFA program, I'm a Master's in Fine Arts, was that I wasn't searching for Augusta. I knew who she was. And I was like, even though, I mean, that drew me in when I got the email saying, Amber, can you consider this? And I saw the title and I'm like, oh, but I know who she is. Mm-hmm. And there's something about that feels familiar. And so I even though I absolutely loved the film, and that's why I said yes. But there was something that was so gratifying to say, but I know this, I know her. What I did, like one of the things I appreciated the most was that you got, it was just beautifully, collectively pieced, parceled, you know? Yeah, that was the most important thing for me, was that one, I knew her, and then I felt that you delivered her story, and although it was short, it was very well articulated and compiled, and I loved her voice, the voice of yes, the fact that it was her, like it was a familiar voice, but it was very specific to her. It felt like her energy, and so I really appreciated that as well.
I just need to say that it's so interesting to me that women artists all know Augusta Savage. Other people may not, but Black women artists know Augusta Savage. And also, a lot of people say that they were taught Augusta Savage at Howard University in the study of the Black art of the Harlem Renaissance.
Absolutely, that's what I said. And I will say, like in high school, because I focused in high school, I focused on photography and art history. And I remember those drone art history, classes, where the AP classes, where it's what's that thing they call the fact is? It's a film. It's a I'm forgetting terms.
Microfiche.
Yes. No. The
Slides.
The slides.
The carousel.
Yes. So picture after picture after picture after picture. And none of them introduced. Wasn't until I got to Howard, until I made a decision that I did not want to go to, because I was in magnet schools earlier in my education, and I had to make a decision that I don't want to go to another magnet school in that way. That I wanted to go someplace where it was my education would be specifically regarding Blackness. So,
That's why we have to hold on to HBCU for dear life. Because that's where the culture is, that's where the knowledge is, that's where the true evolution of knowledge is. I'm not knocking anything else, I'm just saying that what we have been sort of, I don't think I need it. Do I?
We can't hear you back.
I can't hold this thing.
Oh, okay.
Well, I mean, I can hold it, but it distracts me. Can you hear me now? Oh, yeah. It's just that we've been conditioned to thinking that our art, our literature, our certain ways of being in the world, our manners, our textiles, our dress, were side effects. We were the sideshow of American life, not so. From always, we were and are the main event in American intellectual and cultural life. That's not chauvinistic. That's just so. You know that piece, the harp?
Yes.
Did you saw that? That piece of sculpture that was huge and was one of the main attractions of the 1939 World's Fair in New York. Miss Savage didn't have the money to cast the piece in a material where it could be preserved. It was just a matter of coins. Just didn't have money. That piece was the rave. It was the star of the show. But you see it, it breaks your heart even just to think about it. You saw it. It was demolished because they couldn't do anything with it. They couldn't move it, couldn't carry it. So thank God you have the, yes. But look, there was nothing to equal that piece. My darling, there's nothing going on in that period in America. You know, you talk about sculpture, people start talking about Giacometti and Rodin. That happens across the water. They're in Paris, in America. There was nothing to rival that piece. And you know, it comes out of humble beginnings. She started that little, it was probably a little, a studio no bigger than your living room. You know what I mean? No bigger than the kitchen. But that produced some of the greatest artists, not only in this country, in the world. You know, nobody has done a migration series like Jacob Lawrence. Come on. Nobody has, you know. But anyhow, all of that is what you raise, and it's gonna be so much more now. Ooh, you're gonna see what happens. If you had to search for Augusta, my darling, you don't have to anymore, because I think that the way, you know, just even popular culture, just even the bad, you know, people just go the way, you know, things go turn towards it. This book by Jeffrey and Hayes, who was the author of Searching for I'm looking for this book. I didn't have it. I wanted just to buy it. I thought I could just, this book costs a pretty penny, and it is. But you know, there is an edition of this book for $4,000. This is now a major attraction, you know. So
I just want to share that this film is 24 minutes. It could have been a full-length film because this woman's life was so expansive. She was born in Green Cove Springs, Florida. Her homestead, where that community center is placed now, was destroyed by a hurricane. And so there was no visual documentation that existed of her before the age of 29. No baby pictures, no high school yearbooks, nothing. So we used actually some AI assisted, and an artist came up with those early scenes about her birth and her making ducks with clay when she was 5 years old. But there's so much about her life that we were not able to include. She was being hounded by the FBI. Because she was such a political person. And she was also being hounded by a white eugenicist that was stalking her. This woman's like, she married a man who was the Secretary General of the UNIA. And so she was also a Black nationalist. And we're talking about the 1920s and 1930s. Marcus Garvey's organization, United Negro Improvement Association. And he went to Liberia to make arrangements in terms of the negotiating passage for African Americans to Liberia. And this was probably 4 or 5 months after they got married, and he died at sea on his way back to Liberia. So this woman's life was, so tumultuous, so dramatic, but all that she accomplished in the face of all of those hardships is really pretty interesting. So, Emperor, I wanted to ask you, as an artist, obviously, she was creating at the time of the Harlem Renaissance. You are a contemporary artist. And one of the things that the curator at the Met, the comment that she was making, is even today, in most of the major museums, there are very few pieces of work that are included by Black women artists. So do you see parallels in your life and career with Augusta Savage, or do you feel as if you're having an easier time in terms of getting commissions and getting museum dates, etc.?
Okay, so we're talking about a totally different, time frame. So I want to say, one, there are more women artists in general in this time period that we're in. They're more successful, more exposure, more in relationship to being represented, being in collections. So we have made progress, but the problem is of course, is that we are still living in a patriarchal society. So even when women of color, and specifically Black women, make progress, you still are competing with white men that are always here, and then you have other men that, the trickle down effect. But I will say that for all that she went through, and then she, at the end, the quote where she says, if I can be remembered based on what I've taught, basically what I've taught others, that I will herald that. And not that I want to downgrade her life in any shape or form, but she's monumental. And what she did is monumental, and that is being carried forward. That is being carried forward in my life. I mean, when I looked at the original video, I just saw parallels, not necessarily in terms of what was not successful, but what was successfully, projected in my life through being taught about her and learning about her path and her struggle. Almost to the point where when I went back and I was watching it, I was like, wait a minute, she didn't go to Howard? I was like, I felt like she was so ingrained in my path, in my journey as a contemporary artist, that for some reason I had given her, HU privilege. Yeah. So yes, it's hard or it's challenging, but I will not claim anything like that in 2024. I can't. So.
Both of you have made a commitment to education. Obviously, Eleanor, you helped me get out of Howard. And so you were very instrumental in my education, since basically my undergrad degree is in English. And it's interesting that Howard played a real particular role, even though Augusta may not have taught there. Lois Mayo Jones did teach there, Elaine Locke did teach there. You talked earlier, Eleanor, about the role of HBCUs. Also in the film, there was a point that a lot of HBCUs do have their own museums or art centers, but a lot of them still may not have work by Augusta Savage. What do you think that HBCUs should be doing moving into the future in terms of supporting Black art and Black artists, and especially Black women artists?
Well, I think they've been doing it, and I think they should continue and will. I think we already have what we've been wishing for. We just have to do it more. But I just want to get back to the question that you put to him. What those women artists did was to take on the double track of race and gender at the same time and fight it both ways. And she did that. And that cost a lot. Because race is one thing, but gender is another. And when you come to gender at home, in the interior, this little child was put because she made little images, those little ducks and things. Her daddy was a preacher, and he whipped her because he said she was making graven images and all like that. She had to overcome that. And then there was the question, the Renaissance was a time of great self-expression, great vision, a great freedom, all of that. And it was felt globally. Diaspora began there. But the interesting thing is you had the problem of what we call class, of caste to deal with. You had on one hand wonderful writers, Dan Spencer, Marita Vaughn, Nello Larson, all those people. But they were a part of what is called the genteel tradition. They were women who were approved of. But then you have artists who were fantastic and original, like Bessie Smith and Ma Rainey, and those that you call the blues, and they were considered. Can you hear me?
That's much better.
Here we can't hear you. They were considered not. It was a problem of respectability. You know what I mean? And your whole character sort of relied on that. Zora Neale Hurston was outrageous. Now, did you see how I'm dressed? This is outrageous. And I came here, I put that hat on my head. The Beyonce, January, can you give me that hat? Beyonce had started this, you ever heard of a country western tradition, you know, like that. I just left the Delta Convention in Chicago. And you know, every woman in the place had on this. You couldn't do, that's not respectable. That's outrageous behavior, you know. So on. So they had to navigate that. I mean, the idea of achieving your own independence, you know, the idea of your own expression, which art required, that was not the role of women. And Black women, not the only women who suffer that. I mean, whenever there's been an upsurge, an uptick in creative activity, something peculiar happened, not peculiar, something interesting. In the 19th century, you know, you hear the period of the Romantic poets, Wordsworth and Coleridge and Byron and all those people. Well, you heard of them, but you didn't hear of the women who were writing and outselling them. They were writing Gothic novels, but novels like Harry McMillan, you know, those kind of just common interest, popular cultural. And the men got very upset and started publishing things that y'all ought to go home and take care of the kitchen and so on. It happened to Zora Neale Hurston. Even our beloved people like Professor Brown and all of them persecuted Zora Neale Hurston because of her expression. But Zora Neale Hurston is the very godmother of modern in terms of using the tradition of the folk, the language of people, real people, the way people eat, the way people talk, the way people live, and so on. And that is a tradition that feeds, even now, creative activity in fiction. Anyway, all of that. But she is a prime example of that. That and what we call the politics of representation. I'll shut up when I get to the room.
Can you repeat the question that you originally asked? Because I want to answer it first.
Okay.
About the HBCUs?
Right. I wanted you to talk about also your commitment to education and what you've done yourself in terms of teaching young people art, as well as the role of HBCUs in promoting Black art.
Yes. Okay, so as you know, definitely I got my undergraduate from Trinity College, and it was in business, and it was because I don't think this is actually on.
It's on.
It is? Okay, so then I just need to speak up. All right, I can do that.
Okay.
My undergraduate degree is in business because I knew I wanted to be an artist. I basically decided, well, that I need to be able to run a business. And then my graduate degree is from Howard University. and it's Master's in Fine Arts. So what I want to talk about really quickly is about the role of HBCUs in relation to the art and the artist and their careers, and then their continued continuum. I was just talking to fellow artist, Ziza Gibson-Hunter, she's actually back there. And we were talking about the continuum in relationships to artists when they are, getting older and or when they pass away. One of the aspects of that, of the canon, right, the academic canon that happens for artists while they're living, when it comes to predominantly white schools, is that they have figured out how to create canons. Meaning, and if you don't know what a canon is in relation to academics, then you can picture it. Someone who's educated, someone who has a goal, a set of goals in terms of their career path, and they're going to school, and you want to project them forward, right, up and so that they continue living. And HBCUs, we need to also hold them accountable in terms of what happens while you're in school, what you're specifically being taught, not just the aesthetics of your craft, whatever that may be, but also then how to take that craft into the world and create an actual career and income. And this is not just, one artist. This is something that happens with the academic in relationships to art in general. Artists are not necessarily taught how to be entrepreneurs. We like to think that artists are just one of the one possible perfect percentage of people that have good ideas and create and can make their ideas into something that's aesthetically pleasing. But the world doesn't just work like that. That doesn't equate to a monetary value. And so then once you've become successful, then there's that the other schools have managed is that how do we continue to raise the profile of the artists? How do we continue to keep them involved in the industry itself? How do we keep them alongside their peers? How do we create programs to bring these artists back in to talk about their work, to educate the younger artists that are going through their own, matriculation in terms of their degrees? It's a continuum, and that's what needs to be educated. That's what needs to be funded. In addition to when artists pass away, or even before they pass away, what happens to their works? Our works are ending up in other people's hands, and that is effing problematic. And I don't understand. I hope you guys understand what that means, because art is wealth. Art is an asset. Art it's a continuum, not just in terms of what aesthetically you're putting out into the world, but also it's an aspect of our culture, because artists are visual documentarians.
Those are amazing points. Thank you for making them. And I think it does also reach back to Augusta's life, because she was so dedicated to making sure that other artists, that her peers, had a pathway to commercial success. At the same time that she was working in a laundry. And even after those people got successful, they didn't reach back and say, "Sister, thanks, share this, this billing with me." In addition to the fact, I think the whole idea about the question that I'm trying to raise with this film, which is the question of erasure, as you were talking about a 16-foot sculpture of 12 Black children singing, dedicated not only to the Black National Anthem, but also to James Weldon Johnson, who had died the year before. So it was a double tribute to Black culture as well as to him. At one point, Fisk University was talking about transporting the Lift Every Voice and Sing there, because James Weldon Johnson was a graduate of Fisk, but that never materialized. And so a lot of the visuals, for example, of Augusta Savage's work, actually only some of those works only exist in this film, because we had to search to, in Paris and some publications in the media, et cetera, to find even the images of what she produced. And one of the questions I kept raising, which was very hard to get anyone to address, is why is it that the most African-looking pieces of her work are the ones that are missing? So, I mean, these are really critical questions, but it's in line with what you're saying in terms of what are the organizations, what are the processes that we're putting in place to make sure that, as you said, art is not just something that's an aesthetic exercise. It does have value, it reflects our culture. And then what are we doing to support artists long term, especially as our artists are aging out? And I mean, Augusta Savage basically, when she could no longer work, was being supported by her daughter, who was continuing that legacy of working in a laundry. And I mean, just like Zora Neale Hurston ended up doing domestic work, just like Nella Larson ended up doing domestic work. How can people this great that are this important to our culture be left in a situation where they are not supported in the end years of their life, and as they have contributed so much to us? So at this moment, we would like to turn the lights around and invite the comments and questions from.
Yes, let's do that. Do we have questions and comments? Okay.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for introducing her to me, and the film was beautifully done, so I really appreciate the work. So 2 questions. One, I want to make sure I didn't mishear or misunderstand the film, but I thought it said at the Schomburg they did have original pieces there.
The Schomburg has the largest collection of Augusta Savage work in a public institution, and they have 22 pieces.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So, for example, the Met just did the Metropolitan Museum of Art just did a huge exhibit on the Harlem Renaissance and transatlantic modernism, and so they borrowed 2 pieces from the Schomburg to place in that exhibit. So, oftentimes the Augusta Savage work they have is often not actually on display, but they are loaning it to other institutions.
Thank you. And then my second question was, well, more of a statement. I thought it was kind of sad that she felt like the community wasn't ready for her art center, because I thought it was just a matter of poor timing or unfortunate timing, because it was right during the Great Depression.
It's interesting because so the Lift Every Voice and Sing, her exhibit, she actually paid for having souvenir, smaller, versions of it made. So she thought that people in the community, because as Eleanor, Dr. Traylor said, it was such a big deal in the Black community. It was humongous to have this piece in this theme of that scale at the World's Fair. It was a big deal. It was huge. Everyone was so excited. It got so much press. So she assumed that she was going to be able to, part of the way she was going to be able to keep her art center open was by selling these. And again, as you said, it could have just been bad timing. But when she said the community didn't support her, she was really talking specifically about the sale of those miniatures.
Do you know what she was pricing them
I don't know what the price point was. No, I don't.
Yes. My name is Kwashiba. Thank you all for each providing your insight, and also for you, Sandy, for helping to create this film. I learned a lot today. My question is, what is each of y'all's favorite piece by Savage and why? Or maybe the first piece that really moved you?
Well, it's gonna be easy for me to answer the question, maybe a little harder for the other.
Hard for me.
Yeah, because I've looked at all of her work that is currently available. The piece that is the most important to me is actually the last piece that you see right before the credits. And it's, again, a monument that she made, because she made 4 pieces that were actually large scale, not as large as Lift Your Voice and Sing, but large, full scale monuments. So this piece was called Realization, and it was a Black woman seated and a man sitting on the floor, kind of a little behind her. And it was titled Realization, and she said it was the realization of this Black man and this Black woman, the realization of what being enslaved actually meant in terms of their the assault on their personhood and their spirits. So to me, that piece means so much because, I think as Amber just said, it's aesthetically the fact that she was able to get such emotion in clay and in plaster, which is actually a very hard and brittle, material. But that she actually had a psychological subtext in the piece of work, that she always had a narrative in terms of what she was saying about the Black experience. So that piece, to me, going through her papers and going through the collection of work that's at the Schomburg, they actually have letters from Alain Locke, who is considered to be the father of the New Negro movement, who, for whatever reason, around this issue of class, as Eleanor was talking about, because he was Harvard educated and he never felt that Augusta had enough education. She was from poor beginnings. She came from a rural area. She was really, until she went to Cooper Union, she was self-taught. And for some reason, well, I won't say for some reason, he was very jealous of her and was constantly questioning why she was getting so much attention, so much press. And there are letters that suggest that, well, the last time that piece Realization was exhibited was at a show in Chicago. And there's some evidence that he may have actually had something to do with that us not having access to that piece of paper. And, writing letters to suggest that people heckle her when she was giving speeches and things. It seems unconscionable, but this is what happened. Sorry, Realization is my favorite.
So to add on to that, I was recently at the Howard University Porter Colloquium in April, and there was a person giving a presentation regarding, it might have been Renaissance. But just to add on to what you were saying, I was shocked at how much visceral, was organized, negatively organized against some of the women, specifically in the artists, the female artists in the Harlem Renaissance, and specifically artists that were practicing professors at Howard University, that some of the men orchestrated specifically to keep them down, to keep them out of equal pay or being paid appropriately and or advancing their careers in relationship to being teaching and in relationship to being professional artists. It just hurt me when I heard that. Okay, and so then to answer your question in relationship to, I don't have a specific work, but I'm going to tell you a personal thing. I can't stand getting dirty. So one of the reasons why I can't do sculpture and is because I can't
the thought of it, just like getting my hands dirty to that degree, just it's torture. So, but I say that knowing that the amount of passion and the amount of knowledge and the amount of dedication that has to be utilized in order to execute some of the tremendous sculptures and detailing, like lifelike detailing that she's able to execute in her work is just phenomenal. Then, in addition to that, I just, like the woman said, the curator at the Schomburg, when she said that she can feel when an artist loves us. And that's why I love Augusta's work. I have been in front of one of her sculptures that was like life size, and you can feel with the amount of detail and execution that she renders that she loved her people, and that is what I appreciate. And just the parallels, like the Schomburg. So my work is in the Schomburg's collection. So all these things in relationship to how we've moved, you know, generation after generation, we keep on moving. We are moving forward. It's absolutely happening. So
I like the laughing boy. I like the little girl with pigtails. I like John Henry. You know what those pieces realize? I mean, all the way through her work, she just dismissed the images that were being created of us. We were being created with watermelon lips and all that kind of stuff, and she made those beautiful images of the children like they are. She made childhood come through there. So beautiful, just gorgeous. You know, little Paul Ernst Dunbar. Now the criticism against Paul Ernst Dunbar was that he used that stupid language, you know, the plantations, but he broke through it. And somehow, you know, you got the essence of a way of being in the world that you wanted to share. If you didn't recognize it as your way of being, you wanted to be it. You know what I mean? So when Al Smith in 1970, January, made that triptych of the party, he based on Paul Ernst Dunbar's poem, there was a party last night, so you ought to be in there, I can't tell you about. Well, Al put our faces in that picture. You know, he basically, it's the picture created in the 70s of his colleagues, us at Howard University. We're all teaching it. And we are in, he and his wife are in it. I'm in it. Tony Bambara is in it. Sherman is in it. And so, you know, you can so it was that, it's that real, that kind of thing. So that, you know, what I talked about, the politics of representation, that's what I mean, how we are represented. Those women broke through it and set it straight. They did. And that was one of their greatest contributions to.
So I just want to add that Augusta Savage was a realist. And she was also critiqued for that. Jeff Donaldson basically, you know, a bunch of other Black artists basically critiqued her because they said that she should have been doing abstract art and not realism. And she's like, I'm doing Black people.
That's right.
That's what she said.
Well, that's what they did to Zoe. Those same, that was the same. Exactly.
I just wanted to say thank you very much for doing this, because I, like most people in this room, did not know who Augusta Savage was. And really thank you for bringing Dr. Traylor here. But my question is pretty simple. What led you to Augusta Savage?
Hi, Kojo. Um, as a documentarian, I have been doing biographies for some time, but I didn't really understand that I was going to land in a pocket specifically for a while, at least focusing on women, especially women of color. So I worked on a series. It was called Unladylike 2020. We made, with some historians and humanities scholars, came up with a list of 250 women whose stories were lost or forgotten. Chose 26 out of them, and it was an agonizing choice to try to find 26 women out of 250. But again, I mean, just like this is a 24-minute film, because that's all I had the money to make, all we could pay for was films for 26 women. And so Augusta Savage did not make it on that list. And a lot of because the Unladylike 2020 was timed for the centennial of women's suffrage, a lot of the women who were the women of focus were abolitionists and were focused on more civil rights and nation building and that sort of thing. So it felt really important to me that we needed to see the story of a woman who was an activist in the realm of art, who was really a political activist as an artist. That's what led me to Augusta. As well as, I think what Eleanor and Amber also said, that we do not know as much about the women of the Harlem Renaissance and the women of that time period. Thanks for coming, Koji.
Good evening. I'm glad that.
And he said thank you for coming. He was glad to see you.
Yes, sir. Oh, it's so good to see you. I'm so glad you're here.
Any other questions?
She's speaking now.
I had started, but am I on now? Okay.
We can hear you.
I had to write it down so I wouldn't forget here. Thank you for making the film. I did know something about Augusta Savage. In my family history research, I found out that my mother and her sister, who lived here in Washington, D.C., were taken to the 1939 World's Fair by their mother and grandmother. And I did some research on it, and I remember there was very little out there, and I wanted to find out, where did you get that footage from? Because the research that I found, very little showing Black people at the fair. And I remember reading that they had Negro Day, when these Negroes could come and see certain exhibits that were pertaining to their culture, as they would say. So that was my first question, is where did you get the footage? And I just wanted to say, as far as collecting and buying Black art, I did attend pre-COVID at the David Driscoll Gallery at the University of Maryland. His best friend, Curly Hilton, I believe is his name. Yeah. They had several seminars over a period of months where they were helping people learn how to look at art, collect art, purchase art, and those were very instructive. And there's a woman in New York who has a gallery in Harlem and just opened a branch in Brooklyn. And she did also during COVID Zooms where she was trying to tell Black women to start collecting art as an investment, like you buy stocks and bonds. And she mainly represents young African artists, Caribbean artists.
I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but we can't see you. Can you stand?
I'm done.
Okay, thank you. Tell us your name.
Jennifer.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. One of the reasons why it was interesting that Augusta was the only African American artist and one of 4 women who were commissioned to create art for the 1939 World's Fair is that World's Fair was the first World's Fair that Black people were allowed to attend, at least one in the United States. And You know, the thing about research is that you never know you look at one thing and it leads to something else. So we happened to find that footage of Black people at that World's Fair totally by accident, looking for something else. But basically for this film, I have an archival researcher who just dug for all of that. So I can't tell you specifically the source, but if you want to know, I can give me your contact information. I can share that with you. What was your other?
I didn't have a question. It was just a statement about collecting and purchasing Black art.
Thank you.
Can I respond?
So I just want to point out that even though this was the first World Fair that African Americans were invited to, it was not the first, because the original one in Chicago, they were people of African descent were there, but they were there in cages. They were there in exhibits. So I just want to contextualize in relationship to what we are talking about now and being an artist to be commissioned to do, because I've done artwork about the first World Fair. And so the juxtaposition, just, I couldn't not say something about it.
I just want to express my complete congratulatory remarks to Sandra Rattley, who not only as a community member, but to seeing you worldwide and seeing you at such a time in life where people are trying to calm down and find their space as we move to eldership and what have you. You are just a role model for keep going forward, keep pressing on, don't stop. Thank you. And of course, Eleanor and baby Amber. But it reminds me that what was going on then, the Harlem Renaissance, in terms of Black women artists fitting in. I remember hearing Faith Ringgold's story and not being accepted by Romare Bearden and a group of, I think they had, I forgot the name of the mentor. Yeah, at least four various well-known artists did not accept her. Because I think because she was doing quilting and her, yeah, well, you know, they tried like, that's women's art. That's yeah, craft, yeah, and try to separate that out. And also a good friend of mine, Valerie Maynard.
Oh, yeah.
I learned so much from Valerie, a woman who added so much to the table of fine art.
Yeah.
And I heard her story of struggles too, trying to fit in and get in and what have you. And I'm glad that she had the personality and the wherewithal to stick with it and keep moving forward as well. Those are the kind of role models that I think we need. Not the ones that's in the books or the museums. Just keep looking around. You'll find them. The ones that just keep pressing forward with the ideas and be relentless, as we say, about what we put ourselves to. Thank you.
So I saw first Haile said he wanted to speak and then he said no. So Haile.
No, I'm trying to finish with giving feedback. Because I'm kind of in a very interesting intersection. Watch the film, and I'm very grateful that it could have been lost, but you guys have captured it. I'm grateful. It's very, something, we could sit around and judge without knowing what work went to get this whole, whatever you got. However, we talked about the quantity, the lost, etc. It's very, very important that this film is made. And it's for me, it speaks about many things. That's why I was going to change my mind, because the second point I want to make is the class nature of Black people seems to be underestimated even in this room as we talk. Black people measurement of aesthetics is white supremacist. And I think we have destroyed so much of the past. And we're going to continue because if an artist is not commercial, wants to stay depicting what you said about that African essence she did, which I felt was the most powerful part. But at a time when the African aspect of Black people was being destroyed. If you take the Gullah Geechee story, that Zora Neale, when I first went to the South Carolina area and start working on the Gullah Geechee area, all the way to Mexico and Oklahoma, I didn't know what she was writing about. And what the Black bourgeoisie was having a problem with her because she was empowering the real people. So there's a correlation between this sister. After seeing my film, your film, I saw this Gullah Geechee, the whole diaspora of the Gullah Geechee. When I first came to Howard, Gullah Geechee was an embarrassing thing for students who came from a Gullah Geechee community. And this is how outrageous we are in destroying our footprints. And so for me, this is serious. I'm sad because I would like to give my work to Howard University. But Howard University doesn't have the brain. After having served that prison wall for 43 years, I can say what I want, especially in the black meetings. And that is, I do not trust their brain trust. Although UCLA wants my stuff, other school wants my stuff, I don't trust Howard, but I want to give it to Howard. Then there's all these historic Black schools who have not the endowment Howard has, the money Howard wastes, can finance all the other Black schools to preserve Black culture. And so for me, the artist, where do you leave your work is a question. Not yet her time, but it's more outrageous now. Sterling Brown, who my sister there helped me really revive it at Howard itself, because I made it at Howard, because he's the most unwanted professor, but he's the most progressive professor, custodian of so much history. I made a film on him. Well, we made a film on him. So the material, a Boston White University wants it. Not Black people at Howard. I keep saying, we have material, we have sound, we have excess films that didn't make it into the film. Like, I think you have the same stuff. The outtake we quoted, I have sound, I have picture. Who do I give it to? It's in the basement here, in uncontrolled infrastructure. So for me, it's not only that I give my stuff or artists give their stuff, but how is it, what that institution has to preserve? And what are Black people, how much are they spending for culture? I know we go to grocery giant, all of us go to Safeway, but how much do we invest on the cultural nutrition of these things that we all try to collect and stuff? So that's why I was going to stop not saying, because it would be the spirit is so good. We saw this film, and I didn't want to bring this toxic part that is hurting me so much, bouncing left and right, and I'm sorry if it disrupted people.
No. I'm gonna dispel it for you, because I think it's this generation's work to do the art of preservation and recognition, and they are doing it. They are removing the monuments that disgrace us and displacing them with the real monuments that speak to the culture of this place. And I know it's going to happen. And we have both come through the trials of our institution. But it has got to stand. It has done, it only is a conduit for you. It is the conduit for you by which we can see that marvelous film that changed my life, that you created, that Kojo Lambe created in a series of informational communications that delivered a community. So forth, we can go on and on. But I'm just so proud of this generation in terms of what they are doing now to preserve a culture which they now more than ever appreciate. And if this vice president of the United States is elected president, the whole world is going to open up. On women, there is going to be another, well, you know, there have been renaissances, and renaissances happen every day. You know what I mean? They are just a new birth, a new surge of creative activity, a new surge of life. You know, the thing now is when you meet somebody like my granddaughter up there, and I'm meeting her for the first time. This is Tony Kay's granddaughter. And she came up and said, Auntie Eleanor, and I said, you are giving me life. This is a time where life is being given again, you know. And so what we have suffered, Heidi, and what we've gone through is on its way to resolution. They're going to preserve you. You are going to be considered one of the greatest filmmakers of an age. Don't worry.
On that note, I wanted to. Can you please tell us your name? I hate to ask you to stand, but we can't see it. My name is Aziza, and I wanted. I wanted you to know that there will be a panel discussion tomorrow, August 24th, from 5 to 7 at the Yard, 700 Pennsylvania Avenue, and the topic is how to secure your art's value. But really what we're going to be discussing is legacy and how do we protect it, how do we develop it, and we hope that folks will come out and learn about what the things that you can do to preserve our legacy. Because we've got to leave those little crumbs, that crumbs of information. We have to leave it so that our scholars can get to it. And it may take a couple generations for them to get to that information, but we have to leave it. Our elders have to respect what they've done, and all these years that they spent developing this culture. We have to respect it enough to leave pieces of it for our future scholars to discover and make the scholarship and develop the scholarship for our children's children's children. But there's things that we have to put in place. And that's what this panel discussion will be talking about.
Say it again. Where?
Okay, it's at the Yard, 700 Pennsylvania Avenue, Southeast. And the time is from 5 to 7.
It's the husband that's talking.
Yes. And so before she sits, I mean, you don't have to stand up for this, but she's not telling me, this is Aziza Gibson Hunter, and she's the woman that I was referring to, that I was in conversation with earlier. But the organization that she co-founded, Black Artists in DC, is co-founding this panel that she's talking about. And so, you know, it's a resource for artists, collectors, curators, anybody that is in the Black arts world, specifically in DC, but it has connections throughout. So don't search, do a search, Black Artists of DC. Some of the things that were brought up before, you know, it can be served, they can be addressed if more of us are talking to each other, period. And that means more of the filmmakers are talking to other filmmakers, more of the artists are talking to specifically the same type of artists. We need to be in the room more often, challenging each other, being honest with each other, expressing our concerns with each other. And I just want to say that a lot of it, like you mentioned, that we are always fighting against being people that are under an oppressive rule, because we still are under an oppressive rule. And if we're not currently, then we are dealing with the ramifications in terms of Stockholm syndrome. But it is not in our nature to not be cooperative. It is not in our nature not to build community. It is not in our nature not to help each other. It's not. We have been pushing against our own natural inclinations to be in community, and we have to stop doing that shit. We have to stop doing it. We have been programmed by this American society to be individualists. We are not. That is not how we grow. It is not how we have been. And I say we. You know, a lot of my work is about people of the greater majority. And our society has made itself so that we are shoved information down our throats to believe that we are not of the majority. We, as in people of color, are in the majority. And we have to stop using their lens to look upon each other. And
I think we stopped.
That was a good way to end.
Well, yeah, thank you for that, but are there any more questions?
Yes, I have one question slash comment.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, my name is Zoe. So I really love the film, and as someone who wants to become a filmmaker one day, that was so beautiful. My comment, and then it will lead to a question. I think a lot of like organizers and activists can learn from artists about how to resist. And the main thing that I took away from the film is her active resistance throughout the entire thing. How her parents didn't want her to create, but she resisted. How white supremacy didn't want her to create, but she resisted and continued to create throughout her entire life. So my question is, how do we get artists to resist, I guess, like the U.S. empire, art being underfunded and not supported, and knowing that their work is very vital to keeping liberatory movements going, and also like preserving their work as well? That was the question.
And that's for me?
Oh, anybody.
All being done.
Yeah, because a lot of those things we addressed in various ways earlier in terms of one of the main things is if you should not be doing this alone. Plug into, whether you plug into Black Artists of DC, whether you plug into some of the other because there's not a lot, but there are some other artist collectives in this area and in the States. But do research. There are other artist collectives throughout the art continuum. There's Spiral. There's there's Afrocobra. There's thank you, Aziza. And then what is the other one? The one that
National Conference of Artists.
National Conference of Artists. There's Where We At Black People. Where We At Black People. Where We At. Thank you. And then there are others. And even if you have
Black Dandelion.
Black Dandelion, that's right.
What about Illusions of Grandeur?
Illusions of Grandeur. Yes, Illusions of Grandeur is one as well. Thank you. And then figure out how to create your own. Plug into research, plug into the history, plug into something that is currently existing, and then figure out how to create your own, contribute.
GABA, Golden Age of Black Art.
And then remember, you cannot do this by yourself. You should not, or you can't, but don't. Don't. And I can't remember the other part of your question.
I guess too, just like how do you continue to motivate artists if they can't survive, if they can't pay their bills, if they can't, it's kind of hard to create if you don't know if your lights are going to stay on. So I'm wondering, what are your like words of motivation for people to continue to create under the system?
Yeah, and that's a loaded one. That might take up, but like I said, the same thing applies. You need to research, go in terms of seeing what already exists and is helping current artists as well. And then you need to figure out what is your group, what is your clan something, or your tribe. And then I hate to say this, but it's also, being an artist is not for everyone. It's not. I'm just saying. And there are other ways of supporting creativity and creative life force in general that are out there as well. And I'm not trying to walk anybody back from that path, but you have to have some serious cojones. You have to, absolutely, you have to know that you know that you know that you know that this is what my heart, this is what my authentic self needs to put across in this world and keep on going. You have no choice. And when people go at you like other things, like it's like they're picking at your spine. Like, you don't know me. You don't know what I was put on this earth to give.
But I just want to add the story. I want to add, because Tony King is my special sister. I think her example is you could do any other work. Like I did gardening to do bushmills background. So I don't think our art could feed us. My wife and me have always promised not to eat film and recycle it. But we have to work anywhere else as a migrant worker to feed your art. Because if the motivation is the state of your people. Your art is built on the state of your people. It is your people that drive you to keep doing what you're doing. But if you are financed, this is what's happening in the outside world of that. So for me, you have to create, even if it is dishwashing, that is one. And then you do a film or whatever you want to do. So for me, your mother, your grandmother is the best, because I know her very close for the last year. So for me, I did all kinds of work because I didn't want, if I'm financed by them, I have to sing and dance for them. I knew that from day one in school. So for me, you have to create work somewhere else, do your heart, work for your heart. Because for me, it's the state of your people that they don't pay you. They don't have the money to pay you. Black people's state of situation is not this. I'm sorry a little bit about this Obama, and now the new skirt at Obama. That is a very deceptive planet, because I was in a film conference in Dubai, International Film Festival. They were telling us what icon. Now Obama is becoming a president. So what's going to happen to black films? I said, there's milk and bread black people need. I'm not going to want them to be a film financier now. But black people always put their trip on people who cannot deliver. I was never believed that Obama is going to finance nor Hollywood, nor this white supremacist planet. But that's one thing. But you can work anywhere if you want to finance and be free of your voice, free from being owned by somebody, to speak and dance for them. This is the dilemma of black people for centuries. For me, the problem that we don't have an independent black producers, that all producers study to be like white people, a white film company, is our problem. We want a producer that believes like us on the importance of the community story. So I keep thinking, but get on any job, work anywhere to finance your heart.
We have someone speaking, you may have to hold the mic closer.
I just wanted to know, where can we get the film if we want a copy of it, or is that not available?
Well, actually, the film is just this week became available on Amazon Prime, which is where you can rent it or buy it if you want to do that. But you can watch it for free on AmericanMasters.com, PBS.org. But you can rent it or buy it on Amazon Prime.
My last word is this has been wonderful. It absolutely is. whenever we are in gathering, whenever we're in communication, see Johnny Boy again, see Kojo, see all of you. It's life-giving. Thank you very much for having me. Sandy, that was wonderful. Amber, you're good.
Thank you to Holly and Sharif. Thank you for, we have one question. Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. Hi, my name is Miki, and I loved this film. It was so emotional and beautiful to see, so thank you so much for your amazing work. I just graduated from college, but a big part of it was I went to PWI, and me and some colleagues restarted a magazine that used to be functional by Black students 50 years ago. And a big part of that was like working within the paradox of erasure and immortality, especially with Black voices and Black history, especially within like young people. And I'm not an artist, but I am a writer, and I want to know how does one find the balance between creating and like restarting and reigniting the legacy that's been forgotten, but also creating your own and making sure that anyone that comes after you also sees what's happening in this moment right now. So if I can also re-ask the question or anything of that sort, but thank you once again. Really, this was amazing.
Well, I think that part of my motivation in telling this story is that I feel like even though we're obviously talking about a particular time period, historical developments of the 1920s, 1930s, 1940s, that there's a lot that we can reflect on from that time period that still is relevant now. There's still so much about Augusta Savage's story that is relevant now. I mean, as Hailey was just saying. So in some ways, we're just looking at different strategies for how, in fact, we can hold on to our memories, how we can hold on to our history. And so it's interesting now that I think that there's a lot of technology that's available that does make that easier in terms of making us as individual documentarians, as individual collectors, that we can function in that way. We don't always need, a big screen or, a massive premiere or something to be able to do that. A lot of the small, almost boutique periodicals have played a very important role in our culture, especially for Black women in terms of poetry and other forms like that. And even if there are only a limited number of copies that you're able to generate, that those are important. It's very, very interesting to me in terms of this whole idea of what Black women have done. Augusta Savage, when she was in Paris, made friends with this group of women who were the Nadal sisters, who actually were the first people to ever create the concept of a cultural salon. And there were three women who were actually sisters, but it was a group of women who were working together, and they published a periodical that was like life-changing, but they only did 4 issues. And some of the men of the negritude movement basically copied all their stuff and basically kind of redid it. So I think the whole idea of what are we really doing this for? Is it pride of authorship, or is it making sure that there is something that can be saved and something that can be passed on and something that others can learn from? And I think that's what Augusta Savage was saying, that my work, it's great, it's fine if it can exist, but the passing it on is just as important, and leaving the record.
So we have another round of applause. This deserves a longer session. We can have a retake. This conversation about artists and writers about artists, critics, art critics, art preservers, archives, is really very, very, very critical. And I think this film demonstrates that in a big way. We're trying to do some of that around here as well. And we're trying to create our own archive. And anybody that wants to work on that is welcome to. We're also trying to create a larger space so that more of this can go on with more people, so we don't have people standing up, and then we can bring in more sophisticated audio and visual systems. So it's possible. We can do a whole lot of stuff. One thing that she did in that film was inspire me. How did she decide she was going to educate anybody that wanted to come by and take art classes? And how many people came through there? 2,500. 2,500.
What about the co-op, Mama Cherie?
I'm glad you brought that up. I usually is. So we're also trying to turn Sankofa Video Books into a co-op. So that means worker-owned, community-owned, and founder-owned. So anybody who's interested in being part of that, let me know as well. Thank you, Easy. So we have a lot of plans. Stay in touch. I'm so glad that we had this wonderful event. And I know you had more questions. I'm sorry if we didn't get to you, but please give us another round of applause as we start.
Thank you to the fabulous Eleanor Traylor. Thank you to the always fabulous Eleanor Traylor.
Yeah.
Thank you to
Legacy.
Thank you so much for all the Thank you all of you for coming. Thank you so much.
Okay, my wife did not tell you, but we have also every other Friday jazz here by people who scored for filmmakers. It's been attended well. Try to, you have it? Thank you, finally. You read it. Here, thank you. And don't forget the film festival, Daniel Williams.
Yes. Maritu is going, she's our new store manager. As you guys know, Michaela went out on maternity leave. So Maritu is trying her best to fill her footsteps and doing a great, great job, and is going to let us know what's going on.
Thank you all for coming out tonight, and thank you for joining us and for sharing with us all your knowledge and experiences. I truly appreciate everyone out here. We have a couple of events coming up. Tomorrow we have a book event for the Black AF history, and also there's going to be a discussion with award-winning journalist Michael Harriet and Dr. Red Carr. So that is tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. On Friday, as Highly mentioned, we have Jazz Night with David White and Edge Theory. David White is a graduate from Howard University and also the composer for the soundtrack music for Sankofa and through The Door of No Return, Heidi Garimas and Shurikiana's films. So we have that next Friday from 8 to 10. If you want to get tickets, go to sankofa.com and you'll be able to purchase tickets. And lastly, we have Gaza on our mind. It's also a bi-weekly program that we have. It's a space for artistic expression to stand in solidarity with the Palestinian people, and all donations collected will go to WPFW 89.3 FM, as they have been standing in solidarity with the people of, not only with the people of Palestine, but have been reporting relentlessly wherever genocide exists. They've been covering it, so we want to support them. And we ask you to show support as well. Go to the website, you can hit the button donation, and yeah, we collect money and we donate it to WPFW. And we have more events coming up. Please check our website. We have flyers over there as well, our social media. And again, thank you for joining us.
Did you announce James Baldwin and also Baraka? We're doing his birthday, Baraka birthday. We're doing the 100th birthday of James Baldwin. We have his temple or his shrine right there. But we're going to have a very important event where we will read from his plays, Dutchman, etc. for Baraka and also for James Baldwin. Please try to come.
When is that? When?
I don't know. They're the ones.
Yes, for the Amiri Baraka event is going to be on October 7th on his birthday. We are still working out the details to finalize when the James Baldwin event is going to be, but yeah, make sure that you Check our website and social media for more recent updates. Thank you so much.
Thank you for everything that you did. Yeah, right. I mean, I'm not rushing, but listen, please.
Yes, I was actually house member one time. I'm Derek Kendall. Yes. How are you? Good.
Yes, man. I don't even know when Labor Day is. That's how crazy. That was gonna do the same.